Hello people, this is Chibiboa speaking back for another video. I don't think I made a video commentary in the last past 10 years, but today is a new day and in 2 days it's a new year actually. So it's time for a change. And today I wanted to I would say educate people into making the best Windows ISO. I made a video without commentary at all, without any sound, showing the final result. And today I will be explaining how I make this video, how I make this ISO um, with a baseline of the retail version, untouched version, which I will then process. So I will be using 24H2 for this video. I will be using the LTSC variant because it's the easiest one for me to test because I have uh, designed my VMs to not run with TPM or secure boot, and that version is exempt of those, although you can, of course, add the flags to able to boot and install without those requirements. But since LTSC is praised by anyone in this world, or at least in the Windows world, we'll be using this ISO. So I have already downloaded the ISO. If you don't know where you can find it, you will be able to find it on Google pretty easily. So I have it on my OneDrive already. So that's in my documents, MSD and ISO 11. The original file we will be using Enterprise S. I will be putting that on my desktop because I will not be working on the ISO straight. I will first use 7-zip. By the way, this is 24H2 Windows 11 I am using here, fully processed. It's like how I want it to behave. So right click has extra options like the hash, which will be in the video included. I don't know if I will make all those registry files available to everyone. I will see what I can do, but for the video I will include all of that. I can mount the ISO if I want to, but this for this one I just need to extract the contents of the file, and then I can delete the ISO because I don't need it anymore. We have the sources here. That's the installation Vim, and the boot Vim is right underneath it. So you have to understand that the install .vim, so Windows image, is basically the Windows OS. Sometimes you have multiple editions. On this one, you have 3. On the retail one, I think you have 12. So if you want to get rid of those editions, you would need to edit that file, which you can also edit standalonely. So let's say you have this on your desktop alone without all the rest, and you have only this to work with. You can also process this file. It's worth to note that by default, with 7-zip, you cannot do anything basically. You cannot delete, you cannot modify. It's pretty locked down for security purposes, and the bootwin file is just the installation environment, which is pretty special this time around, and we need to revert it back to the old style, which we found in Windows 10 days. So if um, I could show it in the VM, but it would take too much time for not much purpose. But the new 24/2 install bootwim, sorry, for the installation of Windows has a new Windows installation process, which we need to reverse. And to do that, we need to integrate a registry key into that bootwim. So first, we will process the bootwim, and then we will process the actual file, because I need to show you what I do with the bootwim in order for you to understand how to process the file correctly. So you can already delete the editions that you do not want. So I do not want those two. So I delete those two. I only want IoT Enterprise S. So that's the flag for LTSC. Windows PE is not needed, and Windows SEPA is the one that we need to load. On this one, I will just put my profile on it without any explanations. I will just show you the registry that needs to be included in order to load the old what's the name? The old setup. So I don't think it's actually included in those ones because that's for the OS, and the one that I need is of course in my WDK, which stands for Windows Deployment Kit. So everything is in there. So I have my reg files. Um, Select a folder, force all bootwim install. That's very important. So you have to understand that now I am editing the Windows setup, the bootwim file. It's important to know. I do not need WMAC on this. I do not need any drivers on this either. Registry, this one is needed. Components, we will not touch this one. The settings is not needed. TPM can be set up here. Um, Secure boot, I think there is. Okay, there's only that, so it's disabled. That's good. It's LTLC, so by default it's disabled. So if you're on Pro, you have to disable it in this inside the boot vim if you're using NTLite. If you're using Rufus, because Rufus also has the possibility to patch that on the fly when making the USB. But I'll come to that because I don't really like Rufus to making USBs. Um, you can also do it with Rufus. So now I will process the boot Vim file. So that's basically only those two that's actually important. So I can process it. I'm not making the ISO yet. I'm just processing it. And it's important to know, since I'm directly working on this folder, the boot Vim here will be modified. So we are 19 hours 16. It's saving change. It's saving the changes to the image, and the image will then be updated inside the folder that's actually on my desktop. It's very important because when you're working directly on the ISO file, the NTLite will only put it in cache. But in this case, I'm only putting that on the desktop. By the way, fun tip, if you put, for example, you can use the 24H2 installer if you want, and if you want to put like Windows 10 install.wim, you just need to delete the 24H2 one and replace it with the install Vim of your choice. I believe it even works with Windows 7 if it's correctly configured. But don't take my word on that. All right, so the boot Vim has been processed. Now I will start with the bulk of the work. So I will load the actual OS, and the very first thing that I will do is integrate my group policies. So by default, Windows does not come with group policies. It's actually pretty hard to integrate those policies into installation images. So we're gonna cheat a bit. So we're not going to use any official Microsoft tool. We're not going to use any 7-zip shenanigans. Once we have loaded the image here, we will open our Explorer. So that's Windows E for opening that, if you didn't know yet. And now I'm waiting for it to be loaded. So it's not loaded, it's blue. Now it's loaded screen. So now I kind of go to the NL temp mount, which that's actually the loaded. So the loaded ISO that we have here is actually here. All right, so here you can modify stuff, which is pretty important, but be wary when you start to modify stuff. You cannot modify everything because some things are protected. But when you start to modify stuff here or add things here, it's possible that you cannot export this as ESD. So that's important to know when you make changes and you want to have, like me, FAT32 drives. So that's a 4 GB maximum of install.wim file. Above that, you cannot make a FAT32 USB drive. And I want to have FAT32 drives because they are universal. The problem that I have with Rufus is because Rufus make USBs either for legacy or UEFI. You cannot choose. I mean, you can also make FAT32 drives, but it's like extended FAT. It's something strange. And I believe Rufus also put some EFI files that I do not want. So I make the USB myself. I will show you the USB that I made in a second when I'm done with the NTLite stuff. Um, because it's recognized universally, I only need one USB for all systems. Whether old or new, it doesn't matter whether the secure boot is enabled or not. it will always work because it's FAT32. And NTFS, I have seen that sometimes I had issues like select an image to continue and there was like no image displayed, which is never the case with MBR formatting and also never the case with FAT32 formatting, which is important to note. That's a side note. So I am here in a temp mount and I want to integrate my group policy, my current compute that I'm actually using inside the ISO so that everyone can take advantage of those without spending hours into the GP edit making the changes. So here we go to the NTLite temp mount, Windows, then System 32, then Group Policy. This one do not replace the folder, but go inside the folder. Then you go to your C drive, and then you go to Windows, System 32. There it is. And then group policy, this one is hidden by default, so you need to have the hidden files shown. You copy that and you put that into the temp mount. So your image is still loaded. I have done what I had to do in this stage, so I do not need this. All right, so this. Let's put the context here. This is the baseline Windows LTSC 2024 edition. If you want to change the name, you can do that, but you cannot have it mounted. I wouldn't change the name, but if you want to do that, you can do that here. It's mounted. I will now overwrite with my profile, which I will share, don't worry. I have here 84 updates. If I want to integrate more updates, I can select here and select everything, but I will not do that because I want my USB to be FAT32. So I cannot make updates. Never make updates on base images if you want to have your ISO the lowest amount of space possible. So I have integrated here vMake, which is Windows Management Instrumentation, which is very important for enterprises for computer management. I do not know the details because I have no knowledge in that realm, but I know that it's very important. vMake is also very important for old scripts, activation scripts, you know, the Windows 7 days, Windows XP days, they all use vMake, and without vMake you have a lot of issues for those scripts. So I integrate all those vMake files that I have downloaded, which can be downloaded. Those are official files. You can download it in the feature on demand package, which is an ISO that Microsoft makes. It's quite hard to find. You can find them on the NTLite forums. Garlin made a forum post about it, and you can download that there. It's pretty big ISO, something like 4.5 gigabytes. So yeah, but WebMake is only like 7 MB, so it's pretty bummer because you have to download the whole thing. You cannot download them online like a feature on demand uh, to integrate into an ISO. You really need those files. So I have those files here. Maybe I'll upload them. I don't know yet because Microsoft can be quite iffy when sharing files that are not inside the system already. So the Vimic is here. So we have the metadata, which is, I don't know if it's actually needed, but I leave them there just to be sure. And the Vimic files, so that's 6254 kilobytes, not even 7 MB for the whole package, which can do a lot for a lot of people, whether hackers, whether companies, it doesn't matter. So the drivers here, I can put actually those drivers. All those drivers actually fit on a drive, on a FAT32 drive, so I put them there. Then the registry, very important if you want to add some stuff into the registry without spending time adding them yourself. If you already have the regs, you can put it into the NTLite registry thing. You also have the Hive, but I will not go into that because I myself do not understand a shit about it. I do not need to use it. If you need to use it, I would then refer to another video of someone else because I have absolutely no knowledge in this. But I know it's quite used by all the people of the community. So don't worry, there will always be someone either on Discord or the forum that will be able to help you with this. So we have all my registry files that can be integrated. That is already handled by NTLite, so we remove this one. But even if it's already a bit redundant, I will put them there anyway. Cannot really make much of an issue here. I want to test something. If I have something, um, this one, for example, I want to show my hash script. Well, it's not mine, but there is a registry which pushes this line. And if you want to quickly have a hash check, let's say MD5, it will call PowerShell, and it will give you the value based on the file that it is scanning. There we have it. So my file here, this file, the MD5 is this one. If you want to do this for, let's say what's used, I think this one is quite used. If you want to check something really fast, you can use that registry right here, which will ease your life quite a lot. So we have here the hash. Okay, so that's all native. I will go to the special stuff later on, especially because I'm on Windows 11 with the square corners here. I will show this later in the guest OS after the creation of the ISO. Post setup, actually I have my group policy, so these commands make a lot of sense. We have the first one, which is gp update force to initiate the group policy to force Windows to actually use an alien origin policy, because the policy was not created on that ID, it was created on another ID, so you have to force it, which is on there. Sleep for 2 seconds and force it again, just to make sure that all policies were put in place. And then shut down, restart, force it, time to 42 seconds, which is very precise to actually trigger a reboot, a forced reboot, before the user can do any interaction, to actually make sure that the policy has been put in place and that all registries have been activated and that all tiny configuration stuff has been completed. So that reboot is actually needed anyway, so I integrate it into the boot process of my ISO. Now we come to the components. I know people would actually fear this part because when you remove several components, you have problems. But when you remove the right components, you do not have problems. And you will never have problems as well. So even in companies, I would say you can use that, but you really, really, really need to know what you're doing. You really, really need to know how Windows works, which is absolutely not the scope of this video, but it's there. So never ever remove Windows Defender because a lot of times it breaks. Actually, if you remove Windows Defender here, you will not be able to make updates. If you want to remove Windows Defender completely, you have to remove this. And you also need to remove the Threat Defense Service in order to completely remove Defender. But I will not do that because it breaks updates. And there's also something else. If you do not disable the settings of Defender, which are on by default, there's nothing I can do about that. And you remove Defender, Windows Update will reinstall Defender. So when you install a Defender, will not be there, but when Windows Update makes the update, it will be present again. But the issue is, NTLite also removes the settings to make it complete. So you no longer have access to the settings, but Defender is fully active, which is why I do not remove it, because I want those settings. The settings are important to, in my case, to disable them. Don't worry about security. I use a completely different antivirus, but in my case, I disable Defender. And actually, um, I do not want to remove. I do not say to people to remove Defender. I would say to use Defender only when you want to remove Defender and not to be bothered by him the other times. Okay, that can be an issue for ransomware, but let's be honest, 95% of viruses and problems come the problem is between the screen and the chair, which means the user. So the user needs to be quite wary. Very important in my configuration. If one wants to use my configuration, it's important to note that this configuration is meant to completely remove any pop-up of security. I do not want them. I want the Windows XP style of managing the computer. Don't want to be bothered, but that does not mean that security is completely broken as well. It's disabled in context where I want it to be disabled, and it is enabled in context that I want it to be enabled. So, but first, let's go to the components. So the apps, those who you can remove. I don't think there's an actual app installed there, but I remove them. That's fine. Hardware support, do not touch that. You can remove those too. That's fine. Localization. This is actually quite resource hungry in terms of storage. So I remove all those Chinese and special Japanese and I don't know all those different types, but I remove them because, as you can see, they take quite a lot of megabytes. So remove them. Those will never have pose problems for Windows updates, so do not worry about those. But do not remove that. Static phone cache. I don't really know what it does, but don't remove it. I believe it's quite important. Keyboard layouts do not touch. If you remove those layouts, you will have problems in selecting the layout of your keyboard because it will remove the keyboard, but it will not remove the placeholder, which means that you will have a lot of blanks, and that's not sexy. So you leave them in, even if you remove some fonts and some languages. In my case, you have to understand I am from Belgium, so I speak Dutch, I speak French, I speak German, I also speak English to some extent, and I only want by default those four. You have to understand that those four are not the full languages, but only for the translation of the built-in components. The other languages I do not need. And if I need another language which is not present in this list, I can use the Microsoft Store to install another language. You can remove those because they take a lot of space. Unless you speak Chinese, of course. If you speak Japanese or Korean, do not remove those because you will need them. But I do not speak those languages. And I do not believe I remove anything else except for this one in the codecs because it's obsolete, will not pose problems for updates. And this one is also obsolete, includes Indio. It's also this one, Indio codecs. So I remove those two, but that's about it. Also remove Chromium, but properly. You have to understand also a lot of scripts remove Chrome completely. Chrome has a lot of different components, and if you remove all those components, some core features will no longer work. When you click on links, nothing will open because it cannot make the link between clicking on the link and registering an action for this. Whether it is opening with Edge or another browser, it doesn't matter. It just I'm registering a a click on the link, and I have to open my browser for this, and that's needed. You need the legacy for this and also especially Internet Explorer. When you click on links in Outlook, for example, if you do not have this, if you remove this, those links will never open and there will be nothing you can do about it even if you reinstall Edge because it will say that your company has disabled the opening of links inside this application. So do not remove Internet Explorer, do not worry, it will not be accessible. It will only be there as a dependency for stuff like that. And also all the properties which also rely on Internet Explorer for some reason, because the system is quite old and they try to put some new things inside the old system. And we have a thing like Windows 10 early editions and Windows 11, which was a reskin technically of Windows 10 early editions as well. The first edition of Windows 11 was 22,000. This edition is 26,000. So you see, we did a pretty big leap, and that's why some people have issues, especially with crashing blue screen of death, because the kernel jump is really big this time around. And I think that the early editions were like a wake-up call for people with all devices to upgrade or find a way like we have here. So I remove Chrome, only the application. But I do not remove the WebView core dependencies, so I remove WebView, that's fine. But there's also another WebView, there are two WebViews in this. You have the WebView the regular web view, and you have also legacy. Do not remove the legacy. And also another one, I don't know if you play Blizzard games, but if you remove Win32, I don't know where it is. Um, it's in system component somewhere. I think it's, yeah, here. Win32 Web View Host. If you remove this one, you will have a black screen in the Blizzard checkout screen, which is a problem in some games where you can only buy currency inside the game itself. So do not remove that. Even if updates would work, do not remove that. Actually, do not remove any core component, because unless you're making like a very tiny image that you know you will never ever ever update, um, then you can remove, but otherwise do not remove. You can remove capture port to flow. You can also leave it there if you want, but I remove it. And network connection flow. I think with my settings, the regular setup screen is broken anyway, so there's no way around it. You have to use an auto unattend file, but that's okay. I have already my file made, so that's all fine. All right, so I also remove the cache, and there's also the backup of WinSXS. You can remove this because it takes quite some space, and in my case it was actually the difference between being able to put the ISO onto a FAT32 drive or not. So remove that. No problems for updates, it's just a backup. All good. Scheduled task, here you have normally a FOD setup, which will be removed because I removed the component, I think. But if you install Wimic, which is the case here, you have to go here in the scheduled tasks and remove the OOBE FOD setup, because otherwise Windows will automatically remove Wimic. Even if I install it here, if when I install the actual system, Windows in their absolute wisdom will remove it. So you have to remove this, or the component. There's also a component here, FOD. You have to remove this. So basically, applies cumulative update feature configuration tasks like removing Wimic from a Windows 11 24H2 image. It's also told here, alternatively, only remove the OOB for setup, scheduled task instead, which is here, and you can remove it like that. Features by default, I enable Hyper-V always. Doesn't take a lot of space. It's free. I mean, it's free. It's included within your license, and you can make a lot of great virtual machines, which I will be using for the demonstration of the ISO. So that's Hyper-V, media features, legacy components, print to PDF is fine. I disable this, and the settings, we can expand everything. I'm not gonna go here. Crash control is just like I want it. I mean, I will not go into every setting. I let you check within NTLite for the setting. For now, I just use my profile. So since it's shared, you would have no problems using these settings. But I will go to the important ones. We have the privacy. Because this is handled by my group policy, this is all default. Start menu can be interesting to tweak some bits. No, that's the old one. System, which one is important? Automatic activation, I put it on disabled. That's important. Automatic device encryption, BitLocker. This one is enabled by default since 24H2. Go here, use this setting to disable it. Task, I remove everything. Um, User account control. That's important to know. In my profile, everything is basically disabled. So if you're on an admin, everything will be elevated by default. If you're a normal user, nothing will be elevated by default, and nothing will ever be possible to be elevated by default using the invoke of user account control. If you want to elevate an app, you have to explicitly right-click on the app, run as a different user, and enter the credentials of that user. So that's a throwback of the Windows XP days when you had to install something. You had to explicitly click on login as another user for these the installation of this application. So basically, you will never have prompts for everything. For anything, it will install, and this can be tweaked here. Defender is disabled for the first four. You can also do those two, but I believe that those two have actually no effect because Windows, I mean Microsoft, hard coded it into a Defender. But we covered Defender also in my group policy, so it will be disabled by default after the first interaction with one of the settings inside Defender, which is important because by default it will not be activated. It will be activated, but we can disable the ability of Defender to actually find viruses that he thinks are viruses. Here for the updates, to each their own, but I like to have my updates to be handled automatically. In my case and in my policy, the updates are handled every day at 6. So there is an automatic maintenance. The updates will download at that moment and it will install automatically at that moment as well. The updates for Defender are automatic like normal. And every hour it will check for an update. I had never had issues with this method. If you want to change this, you have to change it inside the group policy, which I will cover probably in another video because it will be too much in one video. It's already 31 minutes that I'm recording here, so I'll finish with the NTLite stuff, installing updates automatically. So that's the settings, 245 settings. I do not touch services. I do not need to touch services because the settings cover pretty much every complaint that someone would have with Windows. There's also something important that I must add for the video because I will not really I will not use the image that I create today because I already put the time into my own image, which is pretty much the same, but I don't have the time to exactly pinpoint if my image is compatible with FAT32. That's something that you have to try and error with. Package files. So my VDK applications. No, where is it? It should be applications. Yeah, that's restore the Microsoft source. So I can integrate that. That's actually pretty important. You can also restore it back with a command, but I prefer to restore it back with NTLite. So that's pretty much it. So I had 90 updates. Wimic take pretty much all of them. Post setup is fine. Components are okay. Features are okay. Settings all to me are okay. Services not touching. Services not touching. Other than that, I have my own file already made, so I will not be checking this. Then apply. And in this case, we can create the ISO. Do not apply the settings and stuff to the other editions. It's not needed. Just process the normal image, and that's what I'm gonna do. So it will start like this, and it will process the image. I will cut here after some time, or I will speed. I will speed the video. I will stop talking now, and I will come back when the image is fully processed. So you know it's real. It's almost real time that you see how the image is processed, and then you can see the final result. So we have here Wimic, which is being integrated. You can also integrate it with the features tab, but I had issues with an error that I had, which I couldn't integrate that way, so I had to do it manually. With Windows, you have to do a lot of stuff manually if you want Windows to be good. But once it's good, once your image is made, you will never have issues ever, and Windows will be like Windows should have been from the start. So we have the features work folder has been disabled. Enabling direct play guarded host is by default because Hyper-V uses the secure boot stuff by default. You can choose to not use it, but it's there. And the legacy components for the games. But you can also use scripts and regular stuff to activate those features. Like if you look for features, you can turn Windows features on and off here, which is pretty much the same thing. Hyper-V, you can enable it here. So post setup, when you go here, you can enable Hyper-V. All right, so Hyper-V, well, actually the image is processing, but I can show you how I go to work with those images. So I have my image already, which I will select. I have my image in OneDrive, then documents, MSDN 11 prepared, and that's this one I want. I have also professional, but I want this one. I select this one. I make sure that I boot from the DVD drive and I'm using a physical disk. In order for you to use a physical disk, and that's why I like Hyper-V so much, because it's easy to do. If you want to use a physical disk, you first need to go to the partition your of your drives. So basically, you have the disk one, the disk I'm gonna use. It's a full-blown SSD, which has been taken offline. If I take it online, it's unallocated. If I take it offline, and also it's not available to the virtual machine. If it's online, it cannot be used. Even if it's unallocated, it cannot be used. It really needs to be taken offline, then it can be used. So, all right. Why am I showing this? It's pretty important if you want to partition correctly and not make mistakes. So I can now connect and I will boot my virtual machine. I made sure I didn't have internet. You can have internet if you want, but I do not have internet because it shortens the installation by a minute. So this installation will straight up put you to the selection screen, which is forced. I explicitly forced this screen to appear so that you know which edition that you're installing. In this case, we only have one edition, so I'm gonna install this one. But I'm not gonna make the partitions with the GUI. I'm gonna first make the partitions myself because I want to show you the good practices on making the partitions for your Windows installations. For first, you do Shift F10, which by this time people should know if they're a bit advanced in Windows. So you can do Shift F10 in basically almost every instance of Windows, even when it's like, configuring the computer the very first time. There's actually a Shift F10 that's possible in that stage. So I have here my CMD, and I can ask for disk path, and I can list my disk. You can also do list this, something like that. So you will have your disk. I will select or sell this 0, and I will convert to GPT. GPT is important in this case because GPT is a newer format and allows for custom partition. I mean, more partitions. I think the regular partitions are limited to 4 or 5 maximum, and with GPT there's no such of a limit. But in my case, I like to have an EFI partition that's greater than 200 megabytes, because like that I can do this partitioning with other systems like Unix without having errors. I have had it in the past with macOS where I didn't have the 200 megabyte and I couldn't resize it. So create partition EFI size is 256. Format file system FAT32. Now I want a Windows partition of, let's say, 375 gigabytes. So create partition primary, so primary. Size is 1024 times 375 plus 8 is 384008. Format quick, and now assign letter Z, for example, because this will be my my actual drive. I do not need to assign because I will be using the GUI, but I was able to assign the letters. So if you want to do the dism command to apply the image, you can do it by doing this. So list vol, because I was talking, so I quite forgot. So we have the volume 2, cell vol 2, assign letter Y. That's the letters that I like to use. EFI always Y and system always Z. So I have my partitions, and there's also create par pre because there's also some space left, and then format quick, formatted, list volumes. Volume 3 has no it has not been assigned because it's data volume, but that's you have your volume here. If you want to do the dism command, I will give it here for people that want to use it. So that's dism apply image file, and then your image is on D because your drive is on D. And then you have sources install.wim index. In this case, it's 1 because I only have one index. I removed all the other ones in the beginning of the video, so the index is 1. Then apply directory, then it's Z, and you close it. And basically, you have to do this. Okay? So that's the command, and then you have to also put the bcd boot files. I think it's the command is like this one, then on Y, F, something like that. I'm not sure, but it's something like that. So bcd boot /sy, because Y is my EF5 assignment. Force it all. I think it's force. Should be force. All right, so I have manually made my partitions. Now I have still unallocated space, so you just do a refresh here, and the partitions will be made like I want to have them in the order that I want to have them as well. So this one, do not touch. This one, deleted. This is an important step. The final step of your correct Windows installation should look like this. You have your EFI partitions, which is greater than 200, which is good practice. You have your Windows installation environment here, 375 only for the system, and there you have user data. Why unallocated space is because you have MSR partitions that get created by the installer, which is why I want to use the GUI, because the GUI will do that for me, and if they want to recover partitions. So it's unallocated, but it will create all the required partitions inside that block without touching the last partition, which is the data partition. And the data partition, I want it to be always at the end of the drive, never at the start, which is also important to safeguard your data. If your Windows gets corrupted, your data may sometimes remain in safekeeping because it was on another sector of your drive and was not heavily used as the Windows sector. So there's that. Next, I disabled the internet, and I will let the installer do its magic. And after its installation, which should happen quite fast, Hyper-V is quite good in installing systems. You will have the final results basically out of the box without any um, special requirement, which is important. Not if it's only for yourself once, but if you keep that ISO, you can use it on all your friends' computers. And I will show you some tricks which can be used to streamline some experiences, like the configuration of your browser with extensions and the settings of those extensions, which can be normally quite time consuming. But if you do it like that, like I will show you, you will not have any problems, and the deployment will be very, very fast, like lightning fast, to levels that you maybe did not yet know, but you will know. So restart. Remember, I disabled the internet. If you leave it on, it will check for updates for very quick. It will not actually do any updates. But to be sure that all my scripts and settings are applied, I remove internet and then I re-enable it. Now let's see. The configuration of the ISO has been completed by NTLite. Let's see how much of a space we are taking. So it was on my desktop in sources. No, I'm making the ISO here. So it's on my desktop, then sources. 3995, that's perfect. That's something that I like to see. So that's 381. There's a one last step that you can do. So remember those Defender stuff that I told you. Now I can actually edit the install.wim file because it was recreated by NTLite. So if you go to program files, then it's not here. It's oh, where is it? No. Ah, yeah, here it is. So in program data, you have Microsoft, and then you have Windows Defender, definition updates, default, and you have all those files. If you remove all those files, except this one, you will basically remove all the database bundled with the system. So basically, Defender will be usable. Windows will think that Defender is usable because Defender is actually working, but it's actually blind. It doesn't know anything. So if you leave your computer out of not connected, Defender will be activated, will be basically powerless. And it also removes some size. When you do this, 7-zip won't do it properly, so you have to re-export the file with NTLite to actually put the settings properly. You cannot do it with the mount, the temp mounts, because those files are protected. But inside the Vim files with 7-zip, you can just nuke it out anything you want. If you want to remove stuff, you can do it, no problems. But again, know what you're doing. So here I have my virtual machine, which I can connect fully in full screen. I have here Windows, so that's the basic account that gets created. I'm here in my virtual machine. Maybe put, no, I have to go full screen. Okay. So that's, you basically have this, you get greeted by this. So it's basically dark mode by default. You have settings and pin, and the only apps that you have are these ones. First things first, especially for this video now, time and language, the region I'm gonna put with something more readable, which is English. Otherwise, if you open the Microsoft Store, you have it in French in this case instead of English. So English United States. Okay, and then move down, remove. Then here we add the keyboard. Then in my case, I want to have the Belgian period keyboards, and I remove the US keyboard. Regional format English Belgium, but that's not all. I like to change it to date like this to have my date here, Monday, 30 December 2024, and the time is here. So you don't need any hacks to do this. If you didn't know how you could do this, now you do. And that's pretty much it. So by default, those updates have policies enabled. configure updates policies. If you want to change them, you can change them, that's fine. You go to gpedit.msc. Those policies are now your policies. So you have all settings here, and you can see all the policies that have enabled or disabled. And if you don't like something, you can just, let's say you don't want to have, you want to have the pause updates. For now you have here in Windows updates, you cannot pause, but here you can change it. Not configured, for example. You go back to Windows updates. Maybe you have to log off. GP update force. We learn things every day. If I reload this, no, I have to reboot. Cannot pause them. Okay, good to know. Remove access to pause update features, or maybe I just need to restart settings app. No, not even. Anyways, not important, but if you need to change the settings, it's there to have it in the system. But you probably need to update, to restart after the GP update force stuff. Clipboard history is active by default. Is activatable, but not active by default for privacy. But you can activate it just fine. It works like it should. All right. So now I will have to sideload Florp. So we have here my OneDrive Windows deployment kit, and then we have Florp here. I will show you with my settings, but that's basically what I meant to say with rapid deployment. If you know how the program works, you can do it like that. So my start menu is fine. Okay, install. Yes, I want to launch it. Server not found is okay. Delete, remove, for example. So my Florp is basically looking like this. I do not have any extensions. That's a problem. But because I am using the username, so actually your username is user. You have Windows as display name, but the actual name is user. So because it's user and my host computer is also using user, I can use the app data of that user. I go to Florp, copy that. I go here, users, app data, local. Florp is already installed, or deleted, and then replace it. Could take some time, of course, because it's a virtual machine. Has to do the processing. I'm just gonna show it for this one, but basically you copy the local files of Florp in this case, and the roaming files. You open Florp, you remove the cookies and everything else. You do a full reset of the data, the history and stuff, and you have basically a new browser with exactly the same settings as yours, exactly the same extensions as yours, and if you're smart enough with NTLite, you can sideload those files if you prepare them to be neutral by default. You can prepare those files inside your ISO, your Windows installation environment, send a command line post install. So you remember those commands that I have used in NTLite post install somewhere here. With the GP update, there you can integrate a move command to move the files which are already present somewhere that you know that will be. So the path cannot change. It has to be C somewhere, and you can move them into the app data of user. But this has to be done after the user login because user gets created during the process. So I don't know if you know how to follow in this situation, but basically that's the gist of it. While it's copying, that's the biggest one. Local is always the biggest one. I think it's actually the cache stuff, but Let's see how I have configured the system. I will grant internet back. I can't give internet, that's fine. I'm not afraid of internet. I do not need any post setup scripts. So internet is on, active. Let's activate this quickly if you want to. Thank you. So it's active. Ah, and now I can pause my updates. So after some time, the updates will be pausable in this case. So pause updates. There you have the group policy. Resume updates. Okay. So you have the group policy, which we can help you with managing the updates. You can also change the time of maintenance. It's actually maintenance time, um, and there you can do a lot of stuff. So we have Windows Defender, which actually is working. That's okay. But just have nothing. Engine unavailable. Check for updates. It will install his updates, and all will be fine. You will be able to scan stuff. Manage settings. So by default, this should be active, but I think I did some forcing and stuff, so it's deactivated because group policy. But basically, what I like to do is disable everything. So I will show it here so that you don't have to go again. If I can, not sure if I can. Oh no, I cannot. It got malware bytes, so I only have this. But basically, so as you can see, my computer by choice does not have a TPM. You disable it in my BIOS, but my computer is very modern. So you see, the CPU is from this year, so that's very much TPM capable. Just disable it. That's by default in my profile it's off, and I disable everything because I don't want to be bothered by Defender, but I don't want him to be in my way. I don't want to be in his way, and I do my scans. If I'm using Defender, I'm doing my scans when I want to, and not when Microsoft or when Windows wants me to do the scan. But since I'm using Malwarebytes, Threaddown actually, it's not Malwarebytes, it's Threaddown. I do not have to worry about those problems. So the files are still busy. You can enable everything if you want. What I like to do, I'm still gonna come here. What I like to do on every first system, so is change the date that I have done, but also go into change this because before it was computer. Then go to properties, advanced, system protect. No, performance. Sorry, performance. And then this one. No. Yes. 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 No. These ones. So smooth scroll, smooth edges, show translucent, show thumbnail, show task, save task button is previous. Okay. System is already a little bit lighter, feels a bit lighter, but you still have all the goodness that is required to have of a modern OS. So Flow is installed. It's still copying into local. And that's pretty much it. That's the only, maybe changing the name of your computer. Video of NTLite. I don't know. Next. You change it here and you're done. Basically, we start later. What you can also do is go to msconfig. If you don't want to have the spinning wheel that starts at the boot, you go to startup or you go to boot. No GUI, boot log if you want. OS boot information, put that to 15 seconds. Put that to make all boot settings permanent. Okay, okay, yes. Do restart. Windows Update works fine. My other video will show the update. I'm gonna show the update now, but the other one does. Gaming, I do not like game mode. I've disabled that one. I do not like game bar, but it's disabled by default. Not removed. You can use it if you want, but it's disabled by default. Captures, I think it's enabled anyway. It creates a folder somewhere, I think, in documents or videos. Yeah, captures. You always have that folder. Don't know why it's put there, but it's there. Um, okay, so that has been copied into local. So I have floor local. Now I need floor roaming. Floor, not this one. Roaming, floor, copy, paste. That's a bit faster. So here it's a local account, but imagine this was what I was using before, and now I'm using my Microsoft account just fine. I'm using a PIN, so the security of the computer is not really compromised. You can use all the security features that you want, but you have to actually choose. You have to actually want to have it. What you also can do is into Power CFG, you go to Power CFG CPL and you have the power plants. I have forced my power plant through group policy. This is not something that can be siloed into the image. I have not found the way yet. But basically, you can force a power profile into the system. With CMD, when you go to Power CFG/L, you have all your power profiles with the UIDs, which you need into GP edit, which you need to go then in all settings. You look for specify, custom active power plan, you have the ID here. So D52, D52. If this does not match, you will not be able to enforce a power profile. And this ID changes every time. So I have it installed, will not change. If you install my profile, this one, for example, into another computer, it will have no ID. So you have to change it on every computer. So that's the downside of local-esque Intune, what I'm basically hacking in here. Okay, so that's my computer, that's the virtual machine. So Florp has been deployed basically. If I start Florp now, I have all my goodness here. So that's the virtual machine. If I go here, remove history, clear recent history, everything clear, restart the browser. GG, you have a new browser with all the extensions that are very important. So if I go now to YouTube, YouTube has been completely cleaned up. I have only 4 things here. If I look for something, let's say Asmongold, let's say we look this one, I go back to YouTube. Maybe I will get some videos. Yes, I have the videos. So that's the layout that you can expect if you log into an account or when you start watching a video, which in itself is already cleaned up. So it's not already the system that I'm handling. I'm also handling my browser, and that side loading, which can be um, if prepared right. So if you remove the cookies and so before saving the files, if you put the files prepared into the ESO, send that command to deploy to put into those directories after the user creation, but it has to be user. It can work if it's not user but another username, but sometimes you have problems like you have, okay, you have the settings, you have extensions, but those extensions are completely empty. You cannot use them because they have been compromised and they're not reading the correct path, and I don't know. And you also need to have Flop installed into C. But that's something that you can use, and everything will be back. If I look at YouTube videos, I do not have any ads. Uh, It's that simple. You see? So that's the browser part. So I now have a browser because by default Edge is not installed, but Edge is usable. It's important for these components here. And I go to updates. I go here, advanced options. I go to no, I go to where is this? I go to developers. If I'm on those four, if I don't have legacy, if I don't have the legacy Edge, I will have problems. So even if I reinstall the legacy WebView viewer, there could be issues here. So important to note. Remote desktop is actually on by default. It's not off, it's on. Don't know why it's shown as off, but it's on, but it requires to be a LAN authentication. So basically by default, every system that uses my profile will be accessible if the username has a password. And it's a LAN computer connecting to it. So if you don't want that, you need to go to the group policy, I believe, or you need to disable it explicitly into NTLite in one of those settings. So that's something you have to check into NTLite if you wish to change some stuff, some behaviors. This is only my experience. This is something that I believe to be the perfect OS. This is something that um, I believe to be quite optimized. Inside the program is not usable by the policy as well. It's not disabled, it's not removed, it's just not usable. If you want to use images for betas, you can go to Desk Modder, which is a German website. And in this, if you type 2600, I don't know, dot something, here you can see 24H2 2605 manual download. So you know, Windows XP days, you had to you could use the automatic uploader, but updater, but you could also use some MSU files. So you can download them here. I believe you can also get them on Windows Central, but I always get them here because they're very reliable and those files are actually legit. And sometimes you can directly, you can see it here, catalog.sf.dl.delivery and so on. So you know it's a legit file. But sometimes when you have, betas, real betas, they have to actually compile the file themselves. So if you go back here, I believe we will find some post about a beta somewhere. 22.6.35 I think is an insider build. This one, 13 December, 22.6.35 for 6.55 is a beta build, and this one is manually updated. I mean, generated. So you have to download their own generated MSU. But basically, it's the same stuff. You click and you install. So if you want to have betas, but again, you control it, you have to use those files. If you want to use betas without your own interaction, that's possible, but you have to disable. If you're using my policy, you have to disable the policy that actually disables this. And if you want other behaviors, you have to disable stuff in the policy. Everything is in the policy or the regedits that have added. So now I also have my hash. So I told you I had my hash script. I have here on the left, it's pretty clean. I do not have hardware acceleration, which is normal to have this happen, to this to be shown here. But the computer is basically complete. It has been configured, updates have been installed, so everything works. If you want to use a Microsoft account, you can do that. If you want to use all the goodies, Microsoft Store, paying for games, all that, that's all okay. Now we have the last part, which you can do. It's the start all back experience, which I have here. And I have also the magic tab. And to have the magic tab, you have to go start is back magic. It's the dark magic plus, and you have to use this command. Start is back command slash magic. When you do this, you will have the magic tab straight because this one is hidden by default. And if you want to have the sharp corners, so no, they are not sharp, but I want the sharp corners, and now I have the sharp corners. I also want to set Windows 7 experience. So that's 24H2. You have to understand it's 24H2, the newest and the greatest, latest updates. It works. I have the Windows 7. You can by default it's this one, but I don't like the new one. I want the old one. If you want the Windows 10 one, you can have the Windows 10 one, but I want the Windows 7 one because I have the clock here and I have a better view of pretty much everything. The taskbar, I have the old one. If I want the new one, I can have the new one. So basically, can further configure stuff here, and that's basically it. If you want to have Windows 11 experience with Start Toolback, you can have that. You have 10 or 7. I don't want 7. Looks like trash. It looks dated. I want to have the modernity and the accessibility of before. So that's what I want to do. And basically that's about it. Um, let's see, has he done? Yeah, update is complete. So as you can see, my windows can be updated just fine, just did. And I did not have any edge. And that's not because of LTSC. You would have that same behavior on any edition. It's not Windows Update that reinstall Edge. If they reinstall Edge, it's because they have pushed an update that explicitly install Edge. But that's a different flow. It's not a security update flow, and it's not a feature update flow. It's something else that they add in between. If you want to make new users, I would not recommend to do that here. So normally you do users and then add accounts, but that's not what we want. What we want to do is add a user, loser mgr.msc. Let's say I want to add video. This is great. See you next time. Password, I don't know, unlock, no changes, never expires. Create user member of. We remove that, it's only member of the users. Log off. I probably have to reboot. Even in video, because this one is not scripted at all, I'm discovering stuff. Have you been created? Yes. Okay, there he is. Unlock. So that's a new user. So you will see new user, no permissions, nothing. Cannot install anything. If they can install something, it's something that can be installed by a user anyway, that you do not need account control for it. Some installers ask for fake user account control, but they do not actually need it. So you see dark mode has been applied. Some scripts have been applied. That's NTLite that does this. I mean, they have integrated into the ISO. Unpin, unpin. That's a new user. I am not an admin on this one. You see on the other one we had, like on the default administrator user, this task will be elevated, but this one will not be elevated. So this user cannot change anything. But there is one thing super important in this case. It cannot change anything, but it can access some components that would be normally accessible by administrators, but their subcomponents are not protected by UAC. For example, because I have an example for this one, when you go to properties and you go to advanced system settings, you will always have user account control at this stage. But you do not really need user account control because I want to go to performance. This step does not need user account control. Invoking this step requires user account control. This is why I want to remove user account control in my images, because it does not make sense. If, let's say, I am here and I go, because I can still, you see, I cannot change this. It has also been protected by group policy, but I cannot change this. If I want to go to device manager, it will say I'm a standard user. I cannot change anything. Sometimes you can change some buttons, but not always. And when you do, it will never be registered. So if you go to, I don't know where, but if you change something that would normally require administrator, it will not be taken into consideration. I'm trying to click here. It doesn't take my request into consideration, but UAC never bothers me. I'm a standard user. I do not have any rights. If I want to have CMD as an administrator, I cannot. It's not possible. I'm not an admin. But I can ask to run as a different user. And here you put your credentials if you need admin into that account. I do not have a password, so it will fail here. But that's how you would do it. And then I have a CMD prompt, and I can do whatever I want with that user account. If that user account wants to go to control, then users change account type. You see, normally you would be blocked here. You would have UAC, but you do not need UAC for this. You can even change the account type if you want. Administrator, change account type if you want, but it will not register. It will stay standard. I'm clicking on this. I'm clicking on change account type. I'm here. I go back. Let's say we're sure we do a log off. I don't know. Really to be sure. This is great. Unlock. We are still standard users. So that's, I believe, in some cases, if it's done properly, companies should configure the computers for the users like this. NTLite can do this for you. I didn't invent anything. All credit goes to NTLite. And they should actually put this behavior for the normal users so that normal users have a little bit more control of their computer without having access to the system components, which is important to protect. But in this case, especially in this scope, this is quite useful to do, especially for a home user. The best practice is to have a standard user as an everyday account, which you can also use as a Microsoft account for. So here, settings. By the way, this little settings tab is not there by default. This is included into my profile in NTLite. NTLite adds this. You can add it in the settings, but you know, there's a lot of settings which are already taken care of. Even if you make a new user, those settings will appear. Those policies will be enacted, which is why if companies want to have, want to install stuff really fast, they can use this type of method to in concert with Intune. I mean, if you use both, you can have the best experience for your employees in general. That's basically the purpose of doing this video. Basically, you take care of the local side of things, and you integrate the cloud side of things to have the complete Windows experience that people should have, that Microsoft should have done, but they're not doing it. So I'm showing you how to do it. And then if you want other settings, if you want other security settings, that's all up to you. But that's basically how you make Windows optimizations to have it or to have it optimized from the start yourself, without relying on tiny windows, on bulky releases, on software that do not really change Windows in itself, but they put like a not a skin on it, but I don't know the name, but it's like one button click and you get an optimized Windows. You don't need any of that. You just need what I have shown you here. You download the ISO yourself. You get a license for NTLite. It's like €40 or $40, depends. It's possible that if you contact Nuhi by email for a discount, you see, look, I've watched a video from this guy. He's from the Discord. I'm from the Discord. I have very good contact with Discord members of NTLite. You can, if you have questions, you can ask the questions in the Discord. But you can tell Nuhi, for example, I've seen this video. I'm very interested in visual software, but I do not have a lot of money. I'm from Brazil. I don't know. It's all fine. I'm sure Nuhi will find something. I cannot speak to him. I cannot guarantee anything. Do not take my word for it. But if you ask, maybe you will be granted some gratuity. Let's say it that way. So that's basically my ISO. Profile will be in the description. I will check for the registry files. But yeah, that's basically how I do it.